You've had Wendy's Nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new Saucy Nugs take the crispy and saucy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic, parm, and also the hot versions of those three. I highly recommend all of them. Or if you're a real heat seeker, try the spicy ghost pepper only on Wendy's signature Saucy Nugs. I dare you. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you have never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's. Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3, presented by Wendy's. Hi, Ari. How we doing?
Headphones just weren't working 30 seconds ago. Lights were off. Just walked in the door from dropping my daughter off, and like I am humming right now. Like I'm ready. I'm ready for the show. You know,
awesome.
We had a rough 30 seconds, but I feel 100% ready to go.
So we can talk about how the Oklahoma fans despise you, and they're basically at war with you right now, which I really enjoyed. We put out the video of us picking Texas and Oklahoma. Nobody even noticed that I picked Oklahoma to cover the spread. Like it was just completely covered up by Oklahoma fans' hatred of Ari, who basically said that Oklahoma is going to lose by 1,000.
Yeah, I picked the team that everyone expects to win by a lot to win by a lot.
Yeah,
super controversial stuff.
Yeah, I know, but Ari, you're a guy who, like, you understand all this Vegas stuff, and you know you follow point spreads and history, and like, do you actually know what the record of the favorite in this game is in the last 15 meetings?
Did you look that up? Because I'd like to know. Yeah,
I did look it up. Yes, I did. Okay. So, because I was wondering, because I've been to a couple of these, been to a few of these Red River games, and they've always seemed kind of weird. Like there's a weird energy in the stadium. It's very cool, 50-50 split. It's different, like, because I know this is an SEC game for the first time, so people are like, "Oh, it's just like Georgia and Florida playing in Jacksonville." It doesn't feel the same. Like when Florida and Georgia play in Jacksonville, usually the best team wins. Like 2014, when the Publix bag boy scored on the fake field goal and they saved Will Muschamp's job for 2 weeks. Like that was one of the ones where the best team didn't necessarily win, but usually the best team wins. In this game in Red River, it's wild. Okay, so last 15 meetings, the favorite is 6-8-1 against the spread. Now that doesn't mean they necessarily lost the game outright, but they've not covered 8 times. There was a push in 2009. Texas was a 3-point favorite and won by 3. So it is a strange game. And Oklahoma had a run of just couldn't cover the spread situations. So 2013 is the one I always come back to. That's Mac's last game in this rivalry as the Texas coach. And Oklahoma was a 14.5-point favorite. Texas won 36-20. It was like Oklahoma couldn't do anything in that game. It was wild. But there was a lot of that basically that entire stretch where Oklahoma was better than Texas, and Vegas thought them to be significantly better than Texas, but in this game couldn't really blow them out. So that's
when you look that up. When you look that up, did they show you the spreads of the games too, or just the record?
Yes, I have the spreads of all of them.
Okay, how many of them were 3 scores?
Let's see. 2014, Oklahoma was a 14.5-point favorite. Oklahoma won 31-26. 2013, Oklahoma was a 14.5-point favorite. Texas won 36-20. Not 3 scores, but 2016 was 13.5. Oklahoma was favored, and Oklahoma won by 5. 2015, Oklahoma was a 13.5-point favorite, and Texas won by 7. So,
yeah,
pretty much all of them. The favorite did not cover the spread. All of those big ones. So
let's go. Let's put up a big bag on this and go Texas on it. Go money line too. Listen, I know that the game is weird. I watch it on TV. This is going to be my first time going, but I've watched it on TV since I can remember every year because it's one of the coolest things in the sport. I know that things go off the rails. I just didn't pick for things to go off the rails. But if they do, I'm not going to be surprised. It's happened so frequently. But
I'm just glad that the Oklahoma fans are on you, because
I don't think that's what they're upset about, though.
They do not like when you insinuate they might lose a football game. They get very angry if you insinuate that their team might not win a particular football game. I said all summer, watch out for that Tennessee game. And they're like, are you kidding? Don't you know we're Oklahoma? Don't you know we win every game? And I'm like, you win most games, but you don't win all of them. And maybe you won't win this one. And guess what? They didn't. I also said the Auburn game might be a problem. They won that game. It was a problem, but
we should come up with the thing that you think could go most haywire on Saturday. Like, would Jackson Arnold having to come into the game and leading Oklahoma to a win be the most haywire thing? Or maybe something with Arch Manning. But like, if this game,
an Arch Manning story would be the most haywire. So we're going to talk about all of this, and we can actually talk about it now. There's a ton of stuff to talk about today. We can put it in any order, but the most haywire thing, I think Oklahoma's defense, because this is where you said yesterday, this is another thing that pissed the Oklahoma fans off, is you made it sound like every position group at Texas is better than every position group at Oklahoma. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think it's true for most of the position groups, but Oklahoma's defense is pretty good at forcing turnovers. I am curious if Oklahoma's defense can force some early turnovers, create some short fields, maybe that causes this game to turn. Now, let me ask you this, Ari. I'm curious about this because we actually were set up to talk about this. You and I talked about this off air yesterday. We talked about how marvelously Steve Sarkisian has handled his quarterback situation in terms of making sure everybody knows Quinn Ewers is the starter. When Quinn Ewers is back healthy, he'll be the starter, and that'll be this week. And what if Danny Stutzman and the crew force some turnovers, like they force an interception or they're stripping Quinn Ewers?
Mm-hmm.
If you're Sark, what do you do on that?
Yeah, I think that the way that Steve Sarkisian has handled this quarterback situation has been, like you said yesterday, a masterclass in terms of not making it bigger than it is, maintaining who the starting quarterback is going to be, letting Arch Manning go out there, operate, maybe even starting him a game longer than he would have had he been nervous about people getting antsy about who the starting quarterback is. And like, we're not really questioning it. It's 3 weeks or 4 weeks after this happened. Arch Manning has played, 3 full games basically, and has looked really good in those games, and we're not questioning it. So the thing that I think Steve Sarkisian does, if he even thinks about putting Arch Manning in, is all of the goodwill and all of the work that he's done over the course of the past month in terms of, harboring this discussion and not making up controversy out of it goes out the window. The second you rely on Arch Manning to do something that Quinn Ewers can't do is the second you open the conversation for whether or not the starting quarterback of the team is correct, right? Like, do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, it's like this, like Arch Manning was playing because the starting quarterback was unable to play physically.
Yeah.
But if you put Arch Manning into the game and the game is in question because the starting quarterback is failing, then you are basically saying to the world, I'm not sure who the best player is for the team right now. And then that is when things would go crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, we always go back to Herm Edwards here, but you play to win the games. And at that point, you have to do what you have to do to win the games. Tanner asked in the chat, handled it great. Everything seems pretty straightforward. Why does Sark deserve credit? Tanner, have you watched how other college football coaches handle quarterback situations? Like, watch what Mike Gundy's doing right now with Alan Bowman and Garrett Rangel. You may not find out until they kick off against BYU in, like, I'm bad at math, 12 days, 11 days, who actually is their starting quarterback at Oklahoma State right now. Like,
yeah,
it's the Cam Rising discourse. Like, Kyle Whittingham has okey-doked this on Cam Rising so many times at this point. Like, this is actually very refreshing because Sark's like, hey, Quinn's a starting quarterback. Arch has been great. Quinn's a starting quarterback. Now, I think a lot of that is because Arch's situation is unique. The Manning family understands this. He doesn't have a dad who's saying, if my kid doesn't start, we're going to shut this down in redshirt. Like they don't have that situation. Like they understand Arch only needs one good year as the starter at Texas, and he can go to the NFL and fulfill his destiny. Like they don't have to put any pressure on anybody. And I think that's one thing that makes this different. But I will point out, Ari, and I think we've talked about this a little bit already. I think Brent Venables handled his quarterback situation about as well as he could have as well. Because in the Tennessee game, he brings in Michael Hawkins to replace Jackson Arnold. Very quickly, the following Monday of the Auburn week, he's like, Michael Hawkins is the guy. He's starting. He didn't stretch it out. He didn't make... it's not even the external thing where he told all of us. It's more the internal thing where they made it very clear quickly and didn't draw that out either, so that everybody kind of knew where they stood.
Yeah. And the second you make a decision that is contradictory to the actions and behavior and words that you use is when things go off the rails. So if there is a scenario where Oklahoma is failing on offense on Saturday and they go to Jackson Arnold, then it's a discussion point every single day until there's a starter named again. So I don't know that that's going to happen, but you like to point out that this game goes crazy. I think that him coming into the game, Arnold that is, would be a crazy unforeseen twist in a game that always seems to, illustrate those.
Well, and that's the thing. It's interesting because in the last 20 years or so, there's only been one situation where you had a quarterback come in. You'd think it would actually happen a little more often, but it was Caleb Williams coming in for Spencer Rattler in 2021, right?
And that was pretty obvious move to make now in hindsight, looking back at it, like, of course he came in.
Yeah. I mean, that was a crazy game. That was, Xavier Worthy on the first play of the game goes deep as a true freshman. And, in his first play in the Red River game, like you think about all the talent that was on the field that day, it was pretty fun. But this is going to be a fun game. And as history says, it does tend to go off the rails. It does at least tend to not go by what Vegas necessarily thinks is going to happen, which I think is what makes it so much fun. I also love that Oklahoma fans just despise Ari. It goes back to a tweet that you've since disavowed anyway, but you said basically that Michael Hawkins couldn't throw, which not true. I think what the Oklahoma fans don't understand, but I understand because I know you, is this is just a case of 5-star brain. Like, you're just like, oh, he's the 4-star quarterback. He can't possibly be as good as the 5-star quarterback. But as we all know, it's not like 5-star safeties, which are a pretty high hit rate. 5-star quarterbacks are still like a 50-50 proposition.
I think that what I do, and Ralph Russo, who listens to our show at The Athletic, will be the first person to tell you is that a lot of times when I am thinking something or I'm in the moment, like I will use harsh language. It's something that actually happens in my marriage too, of just like when I am having a discussion or an argument or a thought, like I don't sugarcoat it. I don't like to say soft things, but sometimes I say harsh things that are too harsh. And saying he can't throw was not the right thing to say. But the thing that irritates me about the entire discourse of it is that tweet went completely unnoticed for 2 hours until after he threw the single pass of the game that you've shown me and they show me over and over and over again. And then we dismiss the entire game as if Oklahoma was throwing the ball. I tweeted it at a time where they couldn't get a first down, and every single throw that the man attempted to make was an incomplete pass. Some were missed targets. No one was open. I understand the offensive line stinks. I also understand that their receiving core. But if it turns out that he is not a really good passer, and by that I mean right now because he's young.
Ari, who has a higher completion percentage this year?
No, I understand.
Michael Hawkins or Jackson Arnold?
Yeah.
Who has a higher completion percentage?
Yeah, Michael Hawkins.
So who's better at throwing the ball?
I also think he's thrown the ball half as much though, too, right? I've got to have to look up the numbers, but
completion percentage, actually a third as much. But he's actually way more efficient at it.
Okay, so I'm just saying, like, stats
3
are
yards
pretty
per attempt more. Did
you watch the Auburn game, and did you think that was a very proficient game passing? Did you think that you saw that? You're like, I see a great passing situation here. Is that what you saw?
I'm gonna look at the numbers. Ari, I saw a quarterback average 10.7 yards per pass attempt. Do you know what 10.7 yards per pass attempt can get you in some cases?
What are you saying? I don't know.
It can get you the Heisman Trophy. I mean, like 10.7 yards per pass attempt is extremely efficient.
And how many
very good day passing the ball? What?
I'm saying after he threw that pick, or not that pick, that long touchdown, which is a tremendous throw and a game-winning play. I'm not diminishing it, but
he was 10 of 15. You're telling me he had a bad day passing the ball when he was 10 of 15 for 161 yards. That is an incredibly efficient day throwing the football. That is incredibly good.
All right. If you saw,
that's what you want.
Game and you saw a really good passing situation, then I was wrong. But I didn't see that when I was watching the game. And you can use
10.7 yards per attempt. Every coach will take that.
How long was the touchdown throw?
It wasn't a touchdown. It was like 65 yards, though.
Okay, so that was 40% of his entire passing output on the day.
10.7 per attempt. Shall we look at the national leaders in yards per attempt? Jackson Dart is leading the country at 12.1. There's actually only 5 that average 10.7 or more. Now, Michael Hawkins Jr. has not attempted enough passes to get onto this list.
Really?
So we'll see. It's a small sample size, but you're telling me it was a bad performance, and I'm telling you it wasn't because the numbers tell us it wasn't.
I'm not saying
now perhaps it was an anomaly, but the data we have is pretty good. So let me name you the quarterbacks who average 10.7 or more yards per attempt. Drew Aller, Curtis Rourke, the Maple Missile, Arch Manning, Jalen Milroe,
Maple Missile,
and Jackson Dart. That's the list.
Okay, well, you feel pretty good. Like, listen, if the guy comes out and throws for 10.7 yards an attempt and they're moving the football through the air, then I was wrong. But I don't know. The thing that I feel like is happening here is I have a thought in the second quarter or the early third quarter of a game. That thought was largely appropriate given nobody reacted to it for 2 hours.
Because I have a general rule of thumb that
and then 3 hours later or 2 hours later, when he makes the lone big play of the game, then all of a sudden we circle back to the thing that you probably agreed with at the time, and then I'm an asshole for it. And I can't stand that.
Ari, I have a rule. Never tweet in the first quarter. Probably never tweet in the second quarter or the third quarter either.
I think it was like the late second quarter where Oklahoma was not moving the football at all. And obviously that changes, right? Because a team gets better. But yeah. I would have preferred to tweet something when I tweet something. And if it is crazy when I tweet it, get the reaction immediately. I don't like revisionist
it's
history
in writing, dude. It doesn't go away. So when the circumstances change
at the time, and then it becomes wrong, or somebody does something that they weren't doing later,
that's why you don't tweet in the second quarter. That's why you don't do it.
I love tweeting. But you know what? Listen. The one thing I have to say, and they are right about, is that you can't say things like can't throw, right? Because that is a blanket statement that the man is unable to do it. And for somebody who was as young in his career and threw as well as he did in high school, that was an unfair thing to say. So that is, that's what I think. That said, I don't feel particularly bad about the premise that I was making, which is they moved on from a quarterback that was supposed to be the future after 3 starts, and yes, very poor starts, to go to a person who through the first half of the Auburn game was struggling to get a first down, which is when I wrote it. Things got marginally better in the second half, and Oklahoma was fortunate enough that Auburn threw a touchdown pass to their defense.
Sooner Magic says, I'm the guy on Twitter who insults Ari. I'm sorry for upsetting you yesterday. I'll try to say nicer things to you. See,
I appreciate you being here, but and thanks for actually coming in and listening to the show. And like the thing that bothers me too, Andy, is I don't even sit here in this chair and pretend like I'm always right. I'm a human. I make mistakes. I say things I shouldn't say. And it's like not coming from a hateful place. You know what I mean? And like I am super excited to watch the Texas game. I don't think I'm crazy for thinking that that Texas is going to win the game. I believe that Texas is one of the 3 teams in college football that has the best chance to win the national title, and Oklahoma is going through some shit right now. I don't think it's that crazy to think. But, you know, the way that people treat people when they're wrong or if they say something that's wrong is just infuriating to me, especially considering the fact that the circumstances of the tweet are misrepresented 2 weeks later as if that's what I said after the game was over or that what I said at the time wasn't correct. That's all.
Yeah. People are mean online. Just get used to it.
All my takes are anti-OU.
Producer Rivers doing some math on us. If that bomb falls incomplete at Auburn, his stat line would have been 9 of 15 for 101 yards, 6.7 yards per attempt. But see,
really?
That's why yeah. But you know what? It was a perfect throw.
It was a perfect throw. It was a perfect throw. It was complete, and he gets those as part of his stats. That said, that was the lone play of the entire game of Hawkins as a passer. That was a amazing play or a proficiently.
And guess what? Ari, 6.7 yards per attempt would still be better than Jackson Arnold on this season.
Yeah. And Jackson Arnold has been bad. So maybe part of the reason why people have, a hard time with me thinking this is that I am too attached to what Jackson Arnold was supposed to be.
Five-star brain.
Which I could own up to. And not just because of the rating, but because of what was sold to us from people in the program.
Here's the other part I love is when they get mad at us at On 3. It's like, you guys didn't rate the guy correctly. You had him rated too low. And they're like, you guys had Hawkins as a 3-star. We actually did not. We had Michael Hawkins as a 4-star. It was one of those other companies that had him as a 3-star. So if you can't remember who you're actually mad at, maybe don't paint with a broad brush.
Hey, Andy, can I ask you just a general question too?
Yeah, sure.
Because like Sooner Magic here, who was nice enough to come listen to the show and post.
And Sooner Magic listens every day.
I'm happy he's here. But just between you and me, just us girls here, is Oklahoma having a good season?
At the moment, they're having an okay season. If they beat Texas, I will say they are overachieving.
But would you say that so far, with the way that things happen at Tennessee and the way that the game looked for the majority of the Auburn game, that they are
having the season I expected them to have right now?
It's not a good season for Oklahoma standards. Can we say that? So far,
I can tell you definitively after the Texas game whether it's going to feel like a good season.
Andy, so far this season, is Oklahoma having a good season? It can change.
I'll let Sooner Magic answer the question.
Okay,
Sooner Magic in the chat says we are sucking ass, not happy about it.
Thank you, Sooner Magic. So when I am negative about the team, it's not okay, right? Because I'm a hater and all my takes are anti-OU and whatever. But when you say it, it's okay because you're an Oklahoma fan. And that's the thing that...
Are you new to this?
No, I know, but it's like, because I didn't go to OU or because I'm not an Oklahoma fan, if I say the thing that you think, I'm a hater, but you think it too, and it's so, when does it become an observation?
Ari, nobody is more critical of their own team than the fans of that team.
But why are they upset when other people are critical of it? It's like with my kids.
It's like with my kids, okay? My son will say all sorts of terrible things about his sister over and over and over again. But if somebody at school says something bad about her, they're going to have a problem with him because she's family. You can say whatever you want about family, but somebody outside the family can't say anything about your family. Same thing, same concept.
I know. Also, the complete miscategorization of things, like people who come in and say things that you said that you didn't say, and then like also forget the 25 minutes that we spent after the Oklahoma-Tennessee game talking about how awesome their defense played. Like all that stuff stops to exist. It's just you put something in your brain, you hear one thing, you think one thing, you accuse and insult, and all I'm doing is saying the thing that you probably think. But maybe I can be nicer about it. Maybe I can soften the language and make
you just
your
can't say
syllables
it.
longer.
Like, you're outside the family.
Okay.
I'm outside the family. I can't say it.
Well, if you're looking for somebody who just says nice things only and there's no critical analysis, even
don't
risky
worry.
critical
Don't
analysis.
Say it, Ari. There's other shows for that. There's other shows where they will pump so much sunshine up your butt all off season, all during the season. We're not one of those shows.
But also, too, like saying something that you think also that turns out to be wrong is also part of what we're doing here, right? Like you're supposed to put yourself out there, make predictions. Our job was never supposed to be the prognosticators of the future. And somehow in the last 5 years, that's what it's become. But that's what we're doing. If we're critical or see something, it doesn't mean that we hate your favorite team or that we go to bed every night plotting with the world at On 3 to figure out how to hate Oklahoma. The Sooner Scoop people are the best people I've ever met in my entire life. I love those people. Like, it's just unbelievable.
Ari,
I would want to be
speak for all of us. I hate your favorite team. Despise them. And you know who I love? Your rival. Greatest team ever. Bunch of angels. Your team, bunch of criminals. Your rival, angels. They're all going to be doctors and lawyers someday. It'd be great. I hate your team. Ari doesn't hate your team, but I hate your team.
We actually do go once a month to Kansas City. Me, Andy, and the people who rank the players at On 3. We wear masks with Longhorns on it, and we go underneath wearing robes into the basement, and we plot ways to come up with things on the show to hate your favorite team.
That's
what we. Yeah, it's some sort of Illuminati secret level stuff. Hey, Andy,
my favorite thing is On 3 has a Texas site, so they're clearly anti-Oklahoma. We also have an Oklahoma site,
a very good one. Hey, you know what?
One.
You know what I'm going to do here. Have you had this yet? This Oreo thing?
I have. I have had the Oreo flavored Coke Zero,
this is going to be my first sip of it because I haven't had it before, and my wife brought me home one, and I'm very curious. So this is a taste test of Coca Cola Zero Oreo.
Well, you drink that, test that. I'm going to talk about Rhoback for a second, and then we'll get your review. Guys, you see the little dog on the shoulder. Rhoback, the most comfortable hoodies, Q-zips, polos, shorts, joggers, long sleeve crews. This is the long sleeve crew. This is the best fitting shirt I own. The new joggers, by the way, the buttery soft material on those, it's like heaven on your legs. You know how I feel about Rhoback. You know how amazing it is. You know the hoodies, most comfortable clothing in my collection, stolen by my daughter over and over again. If you order a performance hoodie, you may as well order two because someone in your house is stealing it. Go to Rhoback.com, RHOBACK. Use the code Andy. Get 20% off your first order. Hoodies, polos, Q-zips, pants, shorts, the long sleeve crew, you name it. It's there at Rhoback for you. RHOBACK.com. Use the code Andy, 20% off your first purchase. Ari, how do we feel about the Oreo Coke Zero?
You know what? Not for me.
Yep, that was exactly the feeling I had. My daughter bought some at the gas station the other day. I was like, that's interesting. I took one sip. I'm like, never again. Done.
This isn't true, is it?
What's not true?
Just FYI, zero sugar drinks cause the same insulin spike. I don't think that's true.
No, it depends on the fake sweetener in use. So true for some.
Does my insulin spike
others.
when I drink Diet Dr. Pepper?
I believe so. I believe that is one of the fake sugars that does that. Stevia is the one that doesn't do that. So,
Andy, producer River said, and then we're going to go on to the next segment, but I want to get a rant that's not about football, but kind of in the same vein off for a
Go
second.
ahead.
And I don't know if it's because I'm not a dog person, but I'm probably going to make people upset. But River said in the chat, he said in the chat, when you insult or criticize a football player or team, it's like insulting someone's dog. And I gotta say, I think dogs are cute. I think they're all very cute. And like, having them, I'm assuming if you have one is a joy. But everybody has a dog and they're all cute. Like I can't really, there's no distinction between them to me. It's like if you have a golden retriever, it looks like every other golden retriever that's cute that everyone has.
Yeah, this is like your Mexican food take. Just stop. You're not going to win with this.
Hey, by the way, there was a Mexican food hive on my side on Twitter last night. People were like, yeah, that guy's onto something. So at least, even if I'm wrong on that, like at least I'm not alone. You know what I mean? Like the people, there are people out there that think the earth is flat, but there's other people that think that the earth is flat.
You're not going to win with your dog take's not going to win with anybody. Cause like, I love my dog. Like I'm not a dogs always win kind of person. Like I don't like it when people take their dogs on planes because they're such narcissists that they can't get away from them. And I realize there are people who legitimately need a service animal.
Yeah,
there is that is an emotional support animal. That is not most of the people with dogs on their plane on the plane. That most of those people are narcissists who cannot leave their dog. They think they're doing it for their dog, but they're actually doing it for themselves. But no, if you do anything with my dog, we're going to have a problem. So,
well, I mean, I'm not doing anything with your dog. I think I was nice to your dog. But everybody,
you were very nice to my dog.
Everybody
love my dog. She's adorable.
I know, but like
I understand that some people aren't dog people. I just, if you're not a dog person, you're probably not an Andy person either. So,
no, I'm not. I didn't say I wasn't a dog person. I'm just saying.
I know. I have seen you with your mother-in-law's dog. I know. You can tell people who really don't like dogs. People who really don't like dogs, like, get away immediately. Like they shrink from even like the cutest little puppy coming at them. And those people,
I mean, that's bizarre, but I don't understand the people who see dogs in public and like will seek out the owner of the dog to ask him about like the breed, their name, and like where they were born. I don't understand. Like, what information are you looking for here? It's like, it's 11 years old. It's a golden retriever and it had sex with a poodle 9 years ago. It's like, I don't like it's a cute dog. I don't need to know its origin story. I don't even ask people what their names are. Like, I don't know. It's just like, and like, I like dogs and I think that they're cool, but I think the responsibility that comes with owning one outweighs the enjoyment.
A poodle and a Bernese Mountain Dog fell in love when they have special feelings for each other. Okay. All right. We got
What emotional attachments do you actually have? My wife, my kid, and my family. And gambling and fast food.
Wife, kid, family, gambling, and fast food. I love the way the list just goes completely off the rails. It's perfect.
Okay.
All right. We got to talk about opting out because we had some news on that. I have a column up at On3 right now about when should you opt out midseason. And I'm going to preface this by saying preferably never. Like you are quitting on your team. Let's make no bones about that. If you opt out midseason, you're quitting on your team. You will be known by at least some people as a quitter for the rest of your life. So that you have to understand that. But we saw it with a couple of different people yesterday with, three high profile ones yesterday. Jeheim Oatis, the defensive tackle at Alabama, Caleb Brown, the receiver at Iowa, Leshon Williams, the running back at Iowa. And different situations. These are different situations. So basically, I wrote a breakdown of when you should do this or at least consider it and when you should not consider it. So, Ari, the guys at Iowa, both of them, Caleb Brown, for example, started his career as a receiver at Ohio State. Obviously, could not climb the depth chart there. Goes to Iowa, has an okay season last year, is not doing much this season, has an arrest. He's transferring. He's salvaging a year of eligibility. That's why he's leaving now. Like, I get that because based on his performance so far, he's probably not going to play in the NFL. So you try to create as many earning years as you can in college where you can make NIL money. The Jeheim Oatis one is confusing to me. Jeheim Oatis is in his third year as a college football player. So he has one more year of eligibility to use next year if he wants to use it. And then he's taking the red shirt so that he can also play in 2026. Jeheim Oatis is a 325-pound nose guard who at times has been pretty good. Like he started 3 games last year for Alabama. He was hurt some of that. So a lot of it wasn't necessarily his fault why he didn't start all last season, but he was not playing as much as he wanted to this season. I don't understand that, Ari. Like, if you're a 330-pound defensive tackle who can move, somebody's going to give you a shot in an NFL camp at some point. So why do you need to worry about playing in 2026? Like, if you ball out next year, wherever you go, you're going to the NFL in 2026. You're not going to be playing in college anyway. So why not stick out these next 2 months? Because, like, what happens if these next 2 months somebody get in front of you got hurt? You came in and balled out then. You could be in the NFL next year.
Yeah. It is just an interesting thought because we do fully support, I think I speak for both of us here, but we do fully support the player's ability to use this leverage and to use this power when appropriate, right? But that does not necessarily mean that we support everybody's decision to do it.
It doesn't make it the right choice every time.
Not always the right choice. And I do think that people who do it in very early stages of their career are probably making a mistake. People who have 2 or 3 more years of eligibility anyway. And if you are in a position where you're probably a body type or a caliber of player who's going to get a shot at the NFL regardless based on upside measurables and traits, that quote unquote quitting on your team when you are playing some could play more, could practice better and improve your situation through hard work then, while also having the opportunity to transfer after the year and play another season if you need one, seems like an interesting decision to me. Because you're also, like it or not, and the thing that you cannot change, Andy, is that if you do this, you will have a little bullet point on your resume somewhere that calls you or insinuates that you're quitting, right? And if you do that, you better make damn sure that whatever the gain is, especially if you're an NFL future kid, is bigger than putting yourself in a position where somebody has the gall to question your character. I don't think that everybody who leaves a team or everybody who opts out is a bad person or isn't a good teammate. I think that sometimes they aren't. But I think every time you do it, you are put into the same bucket of personality, right? Like, and when you do that, you have to wring value out of the move that outweighs being in that bucket.
And the thing is, Jeheim Oatis, like going somewhere next year, he's going to get a bit an NIL bag. SEC Scout guy says maybe they can milk a tad more NIL money from another program. Yeah, they can, but they can't leave for the next program until after this season anyway. So why not play out this season? Because
let me ask you this.
Okay,
just
go ahead.
Just mind melding here.
Yeah.
But if you are a player who somebody wants to spend money on, if you have 2 years of eligibility instead of 1 year of eligibility, can you milk more out of the value of that bag? Will somebody overspend because you have an extra year?
That's the question. But here's the other part of that. And again, this applies to a guy like Jeheim Oatis, Bear Alexander, who just left USC. Now, Bear Alexander, we're not as surprised by that he's going to his third college because he went to he actually, I believe, went to 5 different high schools. He played for 4 different high schools. So he's had somebody advising him all along that's like, move. And it's not, the story won't end great usually in that situation. But Jeheim Oatis is not in that situation. That wasn't his experience in high school. This is the real money is in the second NFL contract. That's the life-changing money. That's the 8-figure signing bonus. That's where because honestly, some of these defensive tackles in college are going to make more their last year of college than they make their first year in the NFL. depending on where they get drafted. So I understand that. But if you are playing the longer game, if you want to make the most money, you want to get to the NFL as quickly as possible and get to the second contract as quickly as possible. You don't extend your college career unless you don't think you're going to make it in the NFL.
Yeah.
And that's why, like Matthew Sluka, we mentioned him. We talked a lot about him. The guy was at UNLV, said they didn't pay him what they were supposed to pay him, so he left after 3 games. Matthew Sluka is not going to be an NFL quarterback. He's got one more chance to get paid to be a college quarterback. So he left because he wasn't getting the money he thought he would, and he'll go somewhere else next year. Now, the market for him may be slightly depressed since the guy who came in for him, Jeheim Williams, is better than him.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
But I'm 100% on board with I'm never playing in the NFL. I'm going to use time that I have left to make a move that's going to maximize my potential.
Well, that's when you should do it. If you're sure you're not going to be an NFL player. But Jeheim Oatis should not be sure of that. Jeheim Oatis is a 330-pound guy who can move. Like, there is a potential future in the NFL for him. So don't depress your first NFL salary and potentially extend the countdown to NFL contract number 2. Like, if you're trying to make the best financial decision. And part of it with the Jeheim Oatis thing was like the Pete Thamel tweet storm that announced that he was doing this, like, had 2 agents' names in it. Like, when you have 2 agents' names in your tweet announcing your move, it's like, okay, you see what's going on here. And it's Lil Wayne's agency. And like I said in the column, if you listen to Lil Wayne, you know this saying, like, NIL money's a goon. The second NFL contract's a goblin. Like, you want to get to that. And if you're Jeheim Oatis, that should still be out there for you.
And getting to the second NFL contract is an inherently very hard thing to do. Like, getting to the NFL is hard enough. Getting that 8-figure second salary signing bonus is only for the elite of the elite. That said, when you are somebody that size who moves like that, your odds of doing that are higher than someone else. Because
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I'm not killing Caleb Brown or Leshon Williams or Matthew Sluka, because their college careers tell us they're probably not going to be productive NFL players. But Jeheim Oatis could still be. Like, Quinnen Williams is a good example of this. He didn't blow up at Alabama till year 3. So if Jeheim Oatis goes to another school next season, blows up, he could still be a very high NFL draft pick. But I bet he's lower than he would have been because of this. Like, if he just plays out this season, moves on to another team, and then goes, he's going to be a really high NFL draft pick. And nobody has to ask that question. Like, they're going to ask, why were you scared to compete for 2 more months? That's what they're going to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is a solution here. And I'm not blaming, like, you know how I love to blame the schools for everything. I'm not blaming them for this one. This is sort of an unintended consequences thing. Like, when they passed the 4-game redshirt rule, they were trying to increase depth for teams, especially with opt-outs from bowl games. That's something the coaches wanted. They wanted the 4-game redshirt rule to increase their depth. Coaches have also wanted for much longer 5 years to play 5 rather than 5 years to play 4. If you make it 5 years to play 5 and don't have this artificial 4-game marker in there, then you take away that leverage point. And I don't think people would leave in midseason. I think they just play out the year and then they'd move.
Yeah, well, and there's nothing to gain from it. Like, when you leave after the 4 games or play 4, you feel like you're getting 4 games of tape while never expending anything. But if you're expending the year regardless, then you've got nothing to gain from it.
Yeah,
and like I love that every NCAA rule that we have to keep making is to stop people from not playing. You know, like, we think, opting out bowls and opting out of seasons and all that stuff. It's like, you know, just make rules that make sense financially. Where people
they can't because they're not employees and you can't hold them.
No, but I'm saying, like, we're going to get to the point where You're just paid for what you do, and there are rules in place that, and that's it.
Did you mention that, Ari? Because we're going to talk all about that. But first, I'm going to tell you about PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app. It is America's best daily fantasy game. Play $5, get $50 instantly when you use the code STAPLES. So PrizePicks has every sport, NFL, college football, Major League Baseball. The playoffs are going on right now. They've got esports. The NBA and NHL are getting cranked up, so you're gonna be seeing players from those leagues on the board. And it's so much fun. You've actually got some PrizePicks numbers already coming out. Remember, there are games tonight. There's a game tonight. You have FIU Liberty tonight. So Caden Salter, the Liberty quarterback, 230.5 passing yards, more or less. What do you think? You pick that square. You pick another square. Maybe it's a Major League Baseball square. You pick at least two. The more you pick, the higher the potential payout. Download the app. Use the code STAPLES. Play $5. Get $50 instantly. That is PrizePicks. All right, Ari. You mentioned they'll eventually get to a point in college football where they'll just pay for, something sensible and reasonable. I think they are headed that way. And a couple things that feels like the steps are being taken now. So the House settlement preliminarily approved by Judge Claudia Wilkin yesterday. So what that means is this is the House versus the NCAA case, back pay for athletes that did not get NIL because it was against the rules. So $2.4 billion in back pay will be spread out among the athletes. And then for the next 10 years, schools will be allowed to pay directly to the players. The number will start, the number that a school can pay will start at about $22.5 million a year. That will go up every year. You can also get NIL deals. The issue with this is like the schools still want to police the NIL deals. And they say, oh, you can't have a booster make an NIL deal. We're going to invest it. We're going to create this investigative arm. And if it's more than $600, I'm telling you right now, they're not going to be able to pull that off. So they're going to pay the players directly. The players will get more through NIL. The world won't end, but the schools are going to pay the players directly starting next year if this settlement does go all the way through.
Yeah, and then I think there's probably going to be less reason, unfortunately, for emergency podcasts, because once things start living in a world of order and reason and rules and restrictions and things that are well within the guidelines of a bargaining agreement, then that's when all the stuff that goes off the rails in the middle of the week on Tuesday, October 8th, probably aren't going to happen quite as often. So maybe you'll start seeing holdouts and stuff. I don't know what the next thing's going to be. Yeah. There's always something around the corner. There's always everything comes back around in the morning. But like, it is just kind of, I mean, like you said, this is the charm of the sport. It's almost like when they start just treating them like professionals, that it's not going to go as haywire as often. But there's a lot of stuff.
It still does, though. You have situations like right now. What's the NFL story everybody's following? It's Devontae Adams,
right?
He has a contract, and they have a CBA, but there's still a story there. So, and Hassan Reddick is still a story. So you'll see something
traded, which I don't think is ever going to happen in college unless you can trade somebody to someone else's medical school. That'd be cool. Could you imagine like Northwestern traded for like a Miami defensive tackle, and then all of a sudden he just gets to have a degree from a better university?
Yeah, how about the Miami DT's like, wait, I'm in journalism school at Northwestern now? What? I'm a Medill. I'm going to be a Medill grad?
And then he can bring up Medill in conversation at dinner for the rest of his life.
Oh my God. It is amazing. But so one of the reasons the schools want to do this is the ADs are really sick of begging their donors to cover the collective. Because there are times, and there hasn't been a massive widespread, like it's not happening everywhere, but there have been some situations where donors have had to write a check or send a wire transfer to cover payroll for the collective like that week. And disaster has been averted a few times. They don't want to deal with that anymore. Like, they want it to be a budget line. Here's what we're paying. And for the most part, that's going to cover what they're paying. There will be some outside deals that make up for some of that. But they're gonna use this to cover what they're paying to the players. And I think it should make more sense. Now, there are still plans in place because look, there are going to be lawsuits about this too. Doesn't mean it's going to solve everything. There's still plans in place to potentially do some other stuff. And one of those came out in public on Tuesday. Ross Dellinger from Yahoo wrote about Project Rudy.
You know who Rudy is?
It's a group of investors. They're former Disney executives. It's called Smash Capital is the equity group. They basically want to take the Power Four conferences, pay them to sell their media rights as one, to work together, and they would have a tiered revenue system, which is the only way you could maybe get the Big Ten and the SEC in on this thing, because they'd have to be able to make more, otherwise they're not going to do it. But it also would have like a relegation aspect to it. It's very pie in the sky, but it's one of those things like you saw the College Sports Tomorrow group did this last week, Ari, where they had their suggestion. This one's a little more realistic because it acknowledges that the SEC and the Big Ten are going to want to keep that revenue gap that they've already created. But Project Rudy is a hilarious name because it's named after Daniel Rudy Rudiger, the Notre Dame walk-on who was offsides, who also was indicted by the SEC, and not that SEC, but the other SEC for a pump and dump scheme. So, like, you've named your project for a fraudster. It's the most college football thing ever.
How inspiring your story as a college football player was. If you can pump and dump, you're gonna pump and dump. Okay.
Yeah, but it is interesting because so Chris Bevilacqua, who is the TV consultant, he's actually involved in that College Sports Tomorrow group. He actually sat me down, I want to say it was like 2010, and explained how everything works. And the thing that always stuck with me is that he said if the conferences will ever work together to sell their TV rights, they'll be able to make maybe not as much as the NFL, but they'll get a lot closer to the NFL than they are now. And the reason is because they'd be the only ones selling premium college football. Whereas now, if you want premium college football, you can buy some from the SEC or you can buy some from the Big Ten. It's a different tier, but it's still something people want to watch if you buy it from the Big 12 or the ACC. So that's where this comes in, is basically this Project Rudy thing is the private equity people would infuse them with a bunch of capital, which they want a bunch of money now because they don't know how they're going to pay the players. And they would still get to be the conferences. Now, here's the thing. They would have to work together because this ultimately has a world where when all of the current media rights deals run out, they would all sell it as one. So the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, ACC would all sell their rights as one. So you have to get them to work together. Now, we already have the SEC and the Big 10 working together. The ACC and the Big 12 would love to work together with those two, but right now they're not in the club. So we'll see if that happens, Ari. But it would be interesting because also then you'd have a company. You'd essentially be creating a company that could then pay the players as employees, which I think most of the people in college sports are coming around on. Like it's probably going to have either the courts are going to force them into it, or just from a practical standpoint, there's not going to be any other way.
Yeah. That is a really highly complex situation. I think that I have mixed feelings about private equity being the engine of college football.
Of course. I used to work for a newspaper. I can tell you what they do. Like they are going to make money and they're going to make you run as efficiently as possible. And they do not care if you wind up as a viable business by the end of things, as long as they get their money out of you.
Yeah, right. So, but then on the other hand, getting everybody on the same page, playing by the same rules, and all making money and everything going justly is a nice, warm feeling inside too.
Yeah, it's a little too perfect,
Yeah, a little too perfect. Well, I mean, it isn't perfect. I mean, half the sport's going to get cut out of this thing. So, there is that aspect of it. It's like I hate to be the one that has to bring it up because of my reputation as being a person who only cares about big time programs, but like that would suck for a lot of places. And I understand there's a relegation aspect to it, but the second this happens, and I'm not saying this Project Rudy, I mean just in general, because we are going to arrive at a place where there are 50 to 70 college teams that are grouped together and everybody else gets left off to the side. Like it is going to happen. That's going to suck.
Well, so Chitty in the chat, you'd have to divide the pie by 70 plus instead of 16 and 18. If you're the SEC or the Big Ten, what's the incentive? Well, the incentive in this particular one is they would give you more. So they would keep that revenue gap the same, according to them now. And then how you succeed or fail once all that starts playing out, you would then move up or down based on your success on the field. And like in English soccer, like if you get relegated out of the Premier League, someone else gets promoted into the Premier League, so they start making that share of money. You start making the Champions League share of money. That's the theory behind it. Again, and I understand where Chitty's coming from, and I think Chitty's right. Like if you're the SEC and the Big Ten, you've worked really hard to create this gap. And this was I was trying to explain to somebody last week with that other one, where they basically said, "Oh no," the other one was like, "Here we're just going to have these 80 something schools, and we're going to split it all evenly, but everybody's going to make more than they make now, and that's why the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be into it." Well, no, they won't be into it because they worked really hard to create this gap, and people like power as much as they like money, and the gap is power.
So I need you to explain something to me like I'm 5, okay?
Yep.
So you were the one who told me to read the relegation European football book, right? Was that you?
Yeah. The club.
I haven't read it yet, but I need to read that because I have no foundational knowledge whatsoever.
Yeah, it's about the creation of the Premier League, and you'll be shocked at how similar it sounds to college football right now.
So can I ask this question just out of pure ignorance? Don't judge me because I'm not a soccer person.
Yep.
But the thing I don't understand about relegation and the notion of relegation in college football is that if you go look at the teams that are competing for a national championship in the current landscape of our sport, those are the teams, 99.9%, that earn the most money and spend the most money. Yep. The divide in the sport isn't only, well, it's based on conferences, but those conferences bring in more money in television deals, which then get distributed to teams, and they can now have better facilities, hire more robust coaching staffs and recruiting budgets and all those things, and those matriculate into more passion, more results, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the thing I don't understand, and I don't know if this is the case in European football, but are all the soccer teams in Europe who are being relegated, down and up, whatever, on the same relative financial playing field, or are the teams at the top of the Premier League making a hell of a lot more money than the teams that are at the bottom?
The teams at the top are making a hell of a lot more money. Like, so Manchester United is never getting relegated.
So does Manchester United's
Manchester United is Ohio State.
But is Manchester United's roster, like, are they the Yankees and paying them way more so that they could never get relegated?
Yes.
Because the thing that I think is interesting about relegation is that you're wanting teams who are left out of the picture to still have hope that they can be in the picture. But the reason why they're not in the picture is because they don't make enough money to be in the picture. So how could they get into the picture without the money? And then once they're in the picture, they still don't have the money because they're not getting Big Ten SEC money. And eventually they're just going to get their ass kicked by teams who have better players because they spent more money. Like, I feel like there's like a divide there from a financial standpoint.
You don't overcome on the field. Thinking of Alabama and Ohio State and Michigan and Georgia as the SEC and the Big Ten. We also need to consider Indiana and Mississippi State, because if you are Utah,
but all those teams are in this project. I'm thinking more. I'm thinking more like TCU and Louisiana.
So you're
TCU's in this too. Sorry, Louisiana's out. I'm trying to think of who would be in and out at the bottom. Who's in and out at the bottom?
Well, no. Louisiana. The promotion and relegation would not be happening from like the Sun Belt and the American. In Project Rudy, the way the promotion and relegation would work is you're in like the SEC Big Ten tier of money, or you're in the Big 12 ACC tier of money, and you play your way up into a different tier of money or play your way down into a lower tier of money. But like, I'll give you an example for English soccer. Have you heard of Nottingham Forest, Luton Town, Burnley, or Sheffield United? Do you know any of those teams?
I mean, I've heard of Tottenham because isn't that one of the teams that people wake up for at 6 a.m. in the?
I said Nottingham Forest.
No, I've never heard of Nottingham.
They had a sheriff, Robin Hood. Okay.
It sounds like a brand of jelly to me.
Okay. So, but you've heard of Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool.
Yes, I've heard the big ones.
Arsenal, right. So that's your Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, USC, Oregon. Like that's those guys. These guys are your Mississippi State, Indiana, and then at the top of the championship division, like Leicester City, which actually won randomly. Leicester City is TCU that made the national championship game, basically, because Leicester
they win the national title game
league and then got relegated. But Leicester City could be promoted. But
Leicester City also beat Georgia, right? Didn't they win at the end?
They did beat Georgia, so that's where it falls apart a little bit. But that's ideally what they're talking about. Again,
okay, but relegation is within the 70. We're not talking about relegation from team 71 coming. Yeah,
they're not gonna open it up that much. They're just not.
Which makes it way less fascinating, really.
Right. I don't think they're going to even do this because I think the Big Ten and the SEC are going to protect the gap. I think that's part of their goal is to protect the gap along with making more money.
But this plan here, if it were to come to fruition, is just slicing off the bottom half of the country. Like they're not playing the same sport anymore. Like the Louisianas, the Liberties, those types of teams are no longer in the picture at all.
Okay. Yes, they would have to decide: do we want to be a different division above FCS, or do we want to be part of the FCS?
And would they even play these teams?
Connor fact checking me, and I'm glad you did, Connor, because my English football knowledge is not great. Chelsea almost got relegated like 10 years ago, so. It is possible.
They have a bad season or what?
Yeah, real bad. So that's what we're talking about. So it is not ideal by any stretch. That one, what the Project Rudy thing of the things that have come down the pipe makes the most sense in terms of could it realistically happen? But I still don't think you could get, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it'll happen over the next few years. But I don't think all these conferences will work together.
Well, I mean, like, I don't want to make this a playoff discussion, but if you are a person who loves the 12-team field because you love the inclusion of everybody, the Sam Khans of the world,
right,
then you must hate this.
Right, because
like
if you love the NCAA basketball tournament, you should hate this. Like the thing that makes the NCAA basketball tournament great would not exist here. And it's funny because they like the Power Conference have been trying to make the NCAA basketball tournament more like what we're talking about, where they want some, SEC or Big Ten team that was below 500 in conference play to get an at-large bid rather than some low, smaller conference champion get an automatic bid. So that's.
But I got to go on record here and say that no matter what this looks like at the end of the road, Andy, I hope that the UNLVs and the Louisianas of the world are still somewhat included. Like, I don't want there to be a world where it's completely cut off.
I don't either. I'm not sure it's possible to do what's going to have to happen without doing that, though.
Yeah.
That's the part. I just don't know. Scott in the chat says, Andy, the point about money getting control is key here. This will be why conferences will not work together, like the Pac-7 and the Mountain West not merging. Exactly right. Like more than 100 years of history tells us these people don't work together. Now, maybe they'll prove me wrong, but they have not proven that so far. They've not played well together so far. But Ari and I always play well together, and we're going to keep playing well.
You did upset me earlier, though. You did.
How did I upset you?
Because like we're supposed to be a team, and you're on this Oklahoma bandwagon, and I'm upset with you about it.
Ari, we're a team because the better the show does, the better we do. And when we stoke the fires of Oklahoma fans hating you, it's good for the show.
Okay, good.
Okay. You make more money this way.
Hey, somebody in the chat earlier, Andy, said that I am the biggest Texas apologist they've ever seen outside of the local media, which is insane because I married an Aggie. Did you see that?
I did see that.
I just want you to see what's on my desk.
There you go. But see, the Oklahoma fans that doesn't make him feel any better. That's just another conference rival now.
No, I'm not saying that it would make them feel better, but like, I cannot be the biggest Texas apologist that this person has ever seen.
No, you were at one time, but then you abandoned Texas. Like I was there when you abandoned Texas.
I came back. I came back before last year.
Yeah, you came back, but you abandoned them. Like you left them for dead.
They kept embarrassing me every weekend. Like I'm just tired of looking at a 3.5 point Big 12 spread, and Texas is in the game, and then they're losing to Iowa State or TCU or all these teams.
Is there anybody in the listenership, the viewership that runs a mint? We need to get that Big 12 coin minted. Can we get the Big 12 official picking coin that has plus 3.5 on one side and minus 3.5 on the other side minted? We're gonna make that happen.
There's a company that does it. You can just do it.
Oh. Josh says you should have abandoned us during the Strong and Herman years.
Yeah, but like, I'm not an apologist of Texas. I noticed that they have better players than the other teams, and then said those better players would probably win and make the playoff last year, and then they did that. And now they have better players than most of the teams that they play, and they're probably going to be pretty good again. I mean, it's like, it's I used to be a Notre Dame hater, now I'm a Notre Dame lover. It's all cyclical. Okay, beautiful. Let's go to the last thing.
Right.
Sorry.
Some notes for the rest of the week. I am in a place that's about to get hit by another hurricane. So our Thursday show, well, I may be getting hit by the hurricane when the Thursday show is happening. So we are going to pre-record Dear Andy. I'm just throwing it out there. We're going to pre-record Dear Andy on Wednesday. So please send your questions for Dear Andy and Ari, and also for the Dear Andy and Dear Ari mailbag columns. You know how to find us. I'm Andy_Staples on Twitter and Instagram. Ari is at Ari Wasserman on Twitter and Instagram. You can also email me at andystapleson3@gmail.com. Love your questions. We love your crazy twisted minds. And we would like you to help drive the show. So send us those questions. I've already seen a couple pop in this morning. So happy that everybody's up and thinking, but send those along. I'm going to send out a message to the folks on the West Coast of Florida. Get the hell out. Like, if you haven't already, get the hell out. Like, just to be safe. It's get the hell out. That's all there is to it. And Ari, let's talk about this tomorrow.
Sounds good. Well, you're
I got
coming
saucy
here.
Takes to come up with 3 saucy takes from me.
Yeah.
Wendy's sauciest take of the week. It is my turn. If anybody's got any saucy take suggestions, hit me up. I got a few ideas percolating though. I got some hot garlic parm percolating right now.
I think you should put Michael Hawkins in your Heisman ballot discussion. I think that should be one of your takes.
Ooh.
I mean, if he comes out and lights up Texas.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing. If he comes out and lights up Texas, he's an Oklahoma legend forever, no matter what he does the rest of his career.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, Andy, stay safe. You are coming here this weekend. Your entire family can come with you. You can stay with us. I love your family. Awesome. He's got the nicest family ever. Come on out. You're here. We'll be good.
I think we'll be fine. Oh, Goat Dog wants Diego Pavia for Heisman. I'm tempted. Sorely tempted there.
I do think that there's a world that he could probably play his way into the discussion. Yeah. I mean,
there absolutely is. There's no question about it. So yeah, keep the fiery takes coming. I need some hot honey barbecue, but I need at least one spicy ghost pepper. And we will have our Wendy's sauciest take of the week tomorrow.